My name is Kayla Monroe. I'm 27, born and raised in Denver, Colorado. But none of that mattered on the day my parents tried to humiliate me in front of a lobby full of strangers. I wasn't wearing diamonds. I wasn't draped in couture. I was just me. In jeans, a black top, and boots that had seen better winters. I wasn't supposed to be there. Not according to my family. Don't take another step, my dad barked as I reached the revolving door of the Alvar Grand Hotel. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos? And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. He physically planted himself between me and the glass entrance, arms out wide like I was some intruder trying to sneak into a private gala. Guests in tailored suits and velvet gowns turned to look. A valet holding a clipboard froze mid-step. I could feel the attention shift like heat against my skin. My chest tightened. I glanced at my mother, who stood just behind him in her champagne-colored shawl, her hands crossed in front of her clutch. "Don't embarrass us, Kayla," she snapped in a whisper that wasn't quiet enough. "This isn't some open buffet. You weren't invited." People started murmuring. Eyes narrowed. Lips curled. And I said nothing. Not a word. Because I didn't have to. I knew what was about to happen. So I stepped back. Let the moment simmer. Let them cook in their arrogance. My dad's jaw clenched tighter. My mom looked around nervously, sensing the whispers. But they still had no clue who I really was now. They never asked. I had disappeared from their lives 3 years ago. Not because I hated them, because they made it clear I didn't belong. They called my business a waste of time. Laughed when I told them I was building something online. No real man will want someone who sells candles from her kitchen, my mom used to say. They didn't know that my little candle business had gone viral. That one viral video turned into a full-blown retail brand. That I'd gotten into a pitch meeting I wasn't supposed to be in, with a man who didn't belong there either, a tech billionaire who accidentally spilled coffee on my dress and stayed to hear my idea. And then he invested. And then he married me. And then he bought the Alvar Grand Hotel. So when the hotel manager, a tall man in a navy blazer, strode past the security desk with urgency in his steps and concern in his eyes, I finally turned toward him. "Ms. Monroe," he said, his voice dropping respectfully, "I'm so sorry for the delay. There's been a misunderstanding." My dad furrowed his brow. "She's not a guest," he said to the manager. "She just showed up. We're here for the Kensington Foundation Gala, and she's the primary host," the manager said calmly. Dead silence. Even the valet took a step back. "What?" my mother breathed, her lips trembling. The manager turned slightly toward the glass doors and waved his hand. 2 guards stepped out, real ones, dressed in black suits with earpieces. "Open the private entrance," the manager instructed. "Escort Ms. Monroe inside, personally. And extend apologies on behalf of the Alvar Group." Gasps. The doors slid open, not turned. Slid. Because there was a VIP entrance my parents never knew existed. Because this wasn't just a hotel anymore. It was mine. Okay, technically it was his. But my husband made sure every square inch had a connection to me. The scent in the lobby? My candle brand. The gift bags in every suite? Curated by me. The gala being hosted tonight? Sponsored by our foundation. My mother's fingers twitched as I walked past her. And just before I stepped inside, she whispered, "Kayla, wait." I turned slowly. My father's face was flushed now. "You should have told us," he muttered, clearing his throat. "We would have." I smiled gently. "No, you wouldn't have." And then the glass doors closed behind me. But that wasn't the best part. Not even close. Because what happened after they tried to follow me inside, that was when it really started. Inside the lobby, I was handed a warm towel and escorted to the elevator. Every guest who had watched outside now looked again, this time with awe, not pity. I stood tall, but my heart beat faster than ever. I wasn't cold anymore. I wasn't angry. I just felt free. But the past doesn't stay quiet for long. And tonight it had been invited in. Just 2 floors up, in the Kensington Ballroom, were the very people who had cut me out of family gatherings, sold my childhood piano without asking, and told everyone I'd run off with another broke dream. I stepped into the ballroom to applause. Not for me, but the timing made it feel that way. The event had just started. Glittering lights bathed the room in gold. Waiters moved like choreography. And at the center stage stood my husband, Ethan Maddox, adjusting his black tie. When he saw me, his whole face changed. The public calm dropped into something raw and tender. He took 2 steps off the platform and pulled me into him, without hesitation. "You good," he whispered into my hair. "I'm ready." "Then let's show them." We turned together, hands linked, as he faced the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice carrying through the mic, "may I present my wife, the woman who inspired every square foot of this building. The reason the Maddox Foundation exists today. Ms. Kayla Monroe Maddox." The room erupted, but not everyone clapped. At the far side of the room, my mother had gone pale. My father had stopped mid-sip of champagne. The woman they blocked at the door was the woman on the plaque outside the ballroom. I kept my chin high as I walked across the floor. But inside I was trembling, because I'd waited years for this moment. And I knew it was just the beginning. The applause faded, but the tension didn't. Not in the way my mother stood frozen by the bar, her hand still wrapped around a half-empty flute of champagne. Not in the way my father's eyes darted between me and the event banner hanging above the stage, my name stitched in cursive gold right under the words, "Honorary Host." I felt the weight of dozens of glances. Polished men, perfectly dressed women. Their curious eyes weren't filled with kindness. They were watching because they knew something just happened. Something unscripted. Ethan leaned in. "You want me to keep going, or do you want a moment?" I straightened my back. "No speeches. Just give me 2 minutes." He gave my hand a gentle squeeze and stepped off to speak with the event director. And I walked across the ballroom floor like the echo of every rejection I'd ever swallowed was behind me, watching. My heels clicked on the marble. My father tried to look casual, like he hadn't nearly shoved me away an hour ago. My mother opened her mouth first. "Kayla, we didn't know." "You never asked." I didn't blink. "You never cared to know anything after I left. We thought you were just doing crafts and struggling." My dad cut in. "We figured you were working at some shop or assistant somewhere." I kept my voice level. "You didn't figure anything. You decided." His jaw worked. "You disappeared." I almost laughed. "No. You ignored me until I stopped trying. There's a difference." I looked between them and realized they didn't recognize the woman in front of them anymore. And maybe they never had. "You blocked the hotel entrance," I said. "In front of strangers. Because I didn't look the part." "That's not fair," my mom said quickly. "You showed up with no warning, no RSVP, and you know how your father gets about appearances." I tilted my head. "Right. Appearances. Like the way you told me to hide my natural curls at family events because they looked messy. Or the way you made me change out of my handmade dress before my cousin's engagement party because it wasn't designer. You raised me to believe I was a burden," I said, quieter now. "That I should be grateful just to be allowed in your presence." Their faces stiffened. "I used to think I had to prove something to you. That if I worked hard enough, succeeded big enough, you'd finally say I mattered." I leaned closer. "But now? I don't need it. I don't need anything from you." And I turned to walk away. But then my mother's voice cracked. "Wait, Kayla." I stopped. She stepped forward slowly. "Your sister. She's been struggling. Her husband left. The store went under. Your father and I," her eyes flickered to the tables, to the cameras, "we thought maybe you could help." Ah. There it was. Help. Now that the daughter they discarded had something they wanted. My silence stretched too long, and I saw my dad's pride twist into frustration. "Let's not do this here," he said stiffly. "We're family." I looked at him like he'd just spoken another language. "You don't get to use that word now." Then I turned to the nearest security staff. "They're not on my guest list. Please escort them out." My mother's mouth dropped open. "Kayla." I'll send your driver home with something, I said without looking back. A candle? For memory's sake. I walked away without watching them leave. But as I reached the corner of the ballroom, I saw Ethan watching me closely from across the room. And when I sat beside him, he leaned down and whispered, "You okay?" I nodded, but my heart was still tight. That was supposed to feel better. It will. Eventually. I turned toward the stage again and took a slow breath. But before I could even finish processing what just happened, someone tapped my shoulder from behind. It was the hotel director. "There's something you need to see," he said carefully. "It's about your parents. We found something during check-in." I stood slowly. "What is it?" He hesitated. "You'll want to come to the private office." Ethan stood with me. And just like that, the celebration paused, and the secret started to pour in. The director's office was dimly lit, modern, and cold. He walked to the desk, opened a secure drawer, and pulled out a manila envelope. "We always screen guests who arrive with high-security profiles," he explained. "Background, luggage, communications, anything that could raise a flag." My chest tightened. "Your parents, they weren't here to attend," he said. "They were here to meet someone." He handed me the envelope. Inside, a printed email thread, my father's name, his company address, and a forwarded message titled, "Meeting with Mr. Cartwright, Estate and Holdings Transfer Proposal." My eyes locked on a line near the middle. If Kayla Monroe Maddox is unaware of her ownership rights over the Denver property, we may be able to redirect all property deeds to her sister's name through backdated legal structures. Need confirmation she is not updated while post-marriage. I couldn't breathe. "What is this?" Ethan asked quietly. "They were trying to take back the house. My childhood house. I inherited it after my grandmother passed. I didn't want to sell it. I kept it locked and used." Ethan looked at the signature at the bottom of the email. "Your father was willing to forge property rights to give it to your sister?" They assumed I wouldn't fight. The hotel director stepped back politely. "We can escalate this to legal counsel, Mrs. Maddox. Your husband already has our in-house firm on alert."
My voice was cold now.
"I want everything on file. Everything they brought in, every piece of communication." "Already done." I nodded and turned back to Ethan. "They didn't just block me from the entrance. They came here with papers in their bag." "To steal from you?" "No," I exhaled. "To erase me." He reached for my hand, pulling me gently to sit beside him on the leather couch in the office. His voice dropped low. "You want to bury them?" I shook my head.
"No, not yet."
He waited. I looked up at him with clarity I hadn't felt in years. "I want to make sure they regret ever thinking I was disposable." The next morning, I didn't sleep in silk sheets. I didn't lounge around sipping champagne like the magazines always imagined billionaire wives did. I sat in the corner of the hotel's executive lounge, hair tied up, wearing a hoodie and jeans, laptop open, coffee gone cold beside me. Because I was building something. Not just a response. A legacy. Ethan joined me quietly, sliding into the leather seat across from mine. "You've been up for hours," he said. "I needed to think," I replied, "about how to handle this without looking like I'm trying to get even." He tilted his head. "Who cares how it looks? They lied. Try to take what's yours. You have every right to respond." I met his eyes. "I don't want to destroy them. I want them to see the version of me they ignored and realize they can't erase me anymore." He nodded slowly. "So, what's your plan?" I closed the laptop and leaned forward. "They still think they can play the victim. They think if they cry enough, if my sister acts helpless enough, I'll crack. I won't. But I also won't humiliate them publicly, not yet. I'll give them a chance to show who they really are on their own." Ethan watched me for a moment. "That's cold, but fair." "I'm not cold," I said softly. "Just done pretending." 2 days later, I made the first move. A formal invitation was sent from me, on foundation letterhead, requesting my parents and sister join me at a private lunch inside the hotel's rooftop garden. I knew they wouldn't decline. Not after the embarrassment from the gala. They'd see this as a second chance. But it wasn't.
It was a test.
And they failed before the dessert even arrived. I have to admit, my mom said, carefully cutting her salmon, "This place is breathtaking. You really lucked out marrying someone like Ethan." I smiled thinly. It wasn't luck. We built everything together. She gave a polite hum, like she didn't believe me. My dad cleared his throat. "We've been talking, Kayla, about your sister. She's been through a lot. Divorce, debt, now with the house situation." I didn't blink. "The house situation you tried to handle behind my back?" Silence. My sister shifted in her seat. "I didn't know what Dad was planning." "Yes, you did," I said. "The same way you knew when they canceled my birthday to throw yours. The same way you used my college fund to cover your wedding flowers." My mom looked alarmed. "That was years ago. Let's not bring up old wounds." "You didn't just wound me," I said. "You erased me. But I let you." My father leaned back, trying to retake control. "So, what do you want? You called this meeting." "I did," I said calmly, "because I wanted to see if you'd own it. If you'd apologize. Not because I needed it, but because you needed to remember I see through you now." My sister scoffed. "Are you trying to punish us?" "No," I said, rising to my feet. "I'm reminding you that the girl you ignored built something without your approval.
And now?
Your access ends here." I handed each of them a sealed, white envelope. Inside, a legal statement severing financial and legal ties between us. No more gifts. No shared property. No future favors. My father read it twice. "You can't be serious." "I am," I said. "You said I didn't belong. Now you don't either." They stood, angry, voices rising, until security appeared silently behind me. They knew. They remembered. And this time, they didn't laugh. I thought that would be the end of it. I truly believed walking away with dignity, with everything in writing, would be enough. That if I gave them clean boundaries, they'd leave me in peace. But people like them don't disappear quietly. 3 days after the rooftop lunch, it happened. The headline hit the gossip blogs first, then crawled up into mainstream feeds. "Billionaire's wife cuts off family, sister evicted, parents left, devastated." The article featured a photo of my parents standing in front of the Denver property, my property, posing like victims, bags in hand, acting like they'd just been thrown into the street. It wasn't true. They'd never lived there. They staged it. Hired a photographer. Even gave a weepy interview to a local reporter claiming I forgot where I came from. I read the whole thing in silence. Then I opened the comments. And that's when it hurt. Typical rich girl. Marries a billionaire and turns her back on her family.
Spoiled.
Probably couldn't wait to play the victim. You can tell from her face she's cold. Ethan found me staring at my screen, shaking. "Kayla," he said softly, sitting next to me. "You don't have to read that." I thought if I stayed calm, if I handled it with grace, the truth would speak for itself.
He reached for my hand.
It will. But not everyone wants the truth. They want a story. And right now, I'm the villain in theirs. He leaned closer. "Then tell yours." That night, I did something I never thought I'd do. I recorded a video. No fancy lighting. No makeup team. Just me, sitting at my desk, voice raw, eyes tired. I didn't rant. I didn't accuse. I simply spoke. "My name is Kayla Monroe Maddox. I'm not a socialite. I'm not a villain. I'm someone who grew up believing her worth depended on approval. And when I stopped begging for it, my family didn't know how to love me anymore." I paused. They tried to take from me, not just my home, but my identity. So I said no. I set boundaries. And now I'm being punished publicly for it. I looked directly at the camera. But if protecting my peace makes me a villain, I'll wear it proudly. Then I posted it. And I waited. The response? Massive. People shared it.
Commented.
Thousands of women, millions maybe, echoed similar experiences. Messages flooded in. And slowly, the tide turned. But just as I began to breathe again, I got a letter. Not an email. Not a phone call. An actual envelope. Hand-delivered. No return address. I opened it, hands trembling. It wasn't from my parents or my sister. It was from my grandmother's old attorney. Inside was a handwritten note. My grandmother's handwriting. She had written it before she died. If Kayla is ever made to feel like less again, give her this. There were no legal instructions. No drama. Just a folded sheet of paper that read, "You are always the light, even when they tried to dim you. Build whatever you want in this world, and don't you dare apologize for shining." I cried for the first time in days. Not because I was hurt, but because someone had seen me. Really seen me. Even if they weren't here anymore. 2 weeks later, the front steps of the Alvar Grand Hotel were lined with news vans. But not for scandal. For celebration. The Kayla Monroe Initiative had just launched, a fully funded foundation for young women shut out by their families for choosing different dreams. We didn't just hand out checks. We gave them tools, mentors, spaces to create. And the launch gala? It wasn't about me. I made sure of that. It was about the girls. The ones who'd been told they were too sensitive, too different, too much. I stood at the edge of the rooftop garden, watching the sun set over the city as music drifted from the speakers. And for the first time in my life, I felt complete. Not rich, not powerful, just complete. Ethan slipped his arm around my waist. "You didn't need a speech tonight?" "Nope," I smiled. "The room says enough." He nodded, kissing the side of my head. But just as I turned toward the buffet line, I saw a figure in the corner. My father. No cameras. No press. Just him. He looked older. Smaller. He didn't approach. Just nodded once, slowly, then turned to leave. And I let him. Because some stories don't need a second ending. But life has a funny way of writing footnotes. 2 months later, I got a letter in the mail. From my sister. I almost didn't open it. But I did. It was short. "You were right. About everything. I was jealous, selfish, and I let them control how I saw you.
I'm sorry.
I'm in therapy now. I want to be better, not to get anything from you, but because you showed me it's possible to change. I hope we meet again someday. The real way."
Emily.
I folded the letter, closed my eyes, and let the silence settle over me. This wasn't revenge. It was redemption. I didn't get it from them. I gave it to myself. Today, I still walk past the hotel where they blocked me. Only now I smile. Because I know who I am. And no one, not even your own family, gets to define your worth.